In this video, we will take a look at the scheduled updates of monitoring objects. That means how we can automate updates of new data on our companies when changes has occurred in the Creditsafe databases. So when you have run the assisted setup, you got the opportunity to automatically create a schedule. And if you did that, it will look like this. You will have one single definition of a scheduled update. You can have several with different settings on them, and it will be scheduled. And normally, we by default we set the schedule to 6 a.m. daily. So let's click on the all code here. So open up the card, and we will go through the settings. These boxes here is about filtering. Well, first of all, the code that we call this schedule update, but these are the filters. Should we filter this update on a specific data source? Should we set country code filter? Like, do you maybe have a set of countries to one single or two, three, four countries that you want to process automatically? Well, you can put in a country code filter here. You can select an object type if you only want to process a specific object type. And you can set a filter on the subtype. At least in Sweden, you have like A, B, E, F, H, B, different types of companies. And you have a description for this schedule update. You can also filter on updating only companies where you have a specific type of relation, like a customer. Then you have a setting for calculating active customer/vendor. The reason for us to have this is to limit the scope for the update. Let's say you have like 20,000 customers, but you only do business currently with like 3,000 of them. Then you can limit the scope to those 3,000 to calculate if the customer is active or not. And if you look at the monitoring object, I will open up the list here. You have a column here for active customer. And that checkbox is calculated by this setting. And then normally you only process your active customers and vendors. If you have bothered to calculate it, well, then probably you only want to process those that are active. And how do we define an active customer? Well, that's a customer that has some kind of ongoing sales document, like a sales order, non-posted sales invoice, non-posted sales credit memo, or has an open customer ledger entry, or had some activity in the customer ledger some time back. And that's how far back in time we are looking. We define that in the credit monitoring setup. So I will open up that. And this is the age limit for the active customer and vendor. And you can see the tooltip defines the maximum age of a ledger transaction for the customer vendor to be considered active. So if we set it to, like in this case, 3 months, we will keep updating data on monitoring objects for customers that has done business with us within the last 3 months. And we also check changes. Since we don't want to download new data for every active company every day, we ask Creditsafe for changes. We do this in 2 different manners. For the Swedish API, we send a request to Creditsafe for each monitoring object, asking Creditsafe, when did things happen on this monitoring object? Creditsafe responds with change group codes and dates, and the code Business Central takes a look at those dates and see if there are any date that is newer than this date that we have on the monitoring object. When I say this date, I mean the date for the last data fetch. If there is a change that has a more recent date, we will get report data and do credit check based on changes or all. This was the Swedish data source. If it's a company where we pull data from the global Connect API, we check changes through portfolios. If we open up the list of portfolios, you see that we create a portfolio for each country that supports monitoring. We do this if you in the assisted setup selected to create portfolios. And the portfolios has rules in them. By default, we create 4 rules. If I take a look at these rules here, portfolios will react on changes on score, calculated limit, company, and address. You can modify the rules if we edit the list. And this was Afghanistan. Not such a common example, but as you can see, we have some global rules here and we have some company specific rules. So to repeat, for the global Connect API, we check changes using portfolios. And the portfolios, if we continue on that, if we look at the country, Creditsafe country list. Again, if you selected in the assisted setup to create portfolios, you automatically got a default monitoring portfolio for each country that supports monitoring. So for all these countries, we have portfolios. And as soon as you create a monitoring object for like Norway, that company will be added to the portfolio. So Creditsafe will start monitoring changes on your Norwegian companies. So that's how we do the change check for the global data. And I briefly touched on these changes. Well, this is how do we download report data? Do we do it not at all or based on the changes or for all monitoring objects like we every time download regardless of changes? So we have the setting for processing due manual credit checks. Now this is a way to limit how long is a manual credit check valid. Because when we do a credit check, if we get a rejection, if the user has permission for manual credit check in the user setup, the user can do a manual approve manually. That approval can have a due date. If we look again in the credit monitoring setup, we have a calculate date formula for the manual credit approval lifespan. In my case, 1 week. So if I do a manual credit approval, it will be valid for 1 week. And it will be like the company will be not approved again after 1 week if we have enabled this setting here. We also have a setting for updating the block and limit suggestion. If you on your credit templates has set up the update to be indirect, or in the customer vendor integration, the credit limit update to be indirect. It can create a suggestion. Let's take a look at the settings first. We go to the data sources because this is a data source specific settings. We can take a look at the global connect. We have the first the credit template that can be integrated with customer block, indirect, or it can be direct. But if we have indirect, we can create a suggestion for you. If you look at the customer vendor integration setup, where we specify if we want to have updates of like name and address and so forth, we can also integrate credit limit, direct or indirect. And these two together can result in that we will have a block limit suggestion. How do I page? So we can get this kind of suggestion lines. It's just one single line, but of course this can be multiple lines where we can see the current limit, the new suggested limit, the current block, and the new block. You can update your customers, selected customers, all customers. You can delete lines, you can change lines. That's the block limit suggestion. So if we go back to the scheduled update, this is the setting that will automatically update that block limit suggestion. Otherwise, you have to do it manually from the page we previously looked at, the block limit suggestion worksheet. And this job is scheduled to run daily 6 a.m. If it's not scheduled, it will use the new job queue entry, or in this case, I can open up the job queue entry if I want to. So by setting this up, if you go back to the list of monitoring objects, you will get automatic updates of like ranking, name, addresses on your monitoring objects by default automatically whenever changes occur in Creditsafe. In a separate video, I will show you how to set up monitoring of field changes and group changes. So this will help you keep track on what is happening in those updates. Also, the lowered credit ranks will come this way. So every time one of your customers get a lowered credit rank, you will get a notification of it like this, right? Not like an email or something, but you will see it in this box, and you can click up the list here and see all your customers that has got negative information. So that was today's topic about schedule updates. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.